Yes, yes. This is a summary of an essay that I wrote called Views on Abortion. When I read the original out loud, it turned out to be far too long, and this one in itself is also long, but believe it or not, I like the summary better than the essay, so this is what I've chosen to read. Also, I've kept the genders to one or the other, so I don't have to keep saying him or her, he or she, himself or herself. It's very annoying, so I'm not trying to be prejudiced here. I tried to use both. Okay, I've categorized things into numbers in order to keep them uh, together. 1. I am very pro-choice, but I always stress safe and reliable contraception for those who may want to get pregnant, but not now, and recommend sterilization for those who know that they don't want to have biological children. I myself had a tubal ligation on the 22nd of September 2011. I fully support universal health care, including public funding of organizations such as Planned Parenthood. While many are angered that they aid women in getting abortions, it's also important to note that they provide contraception for those who can't afford it, and also information to those who might not otherwise receive it. 2. Contraception can fail for a variety of reasons, and even women who have been sterilized can have ectopic pregnancies. This means that the fetus stays in the fallopian tubes, which could kill the mother. So it's vital to abort in these cases. But there are other reasons for abortion, including not being emotionally or financially stable, one or both partners being caregivers to a child and/or adult, one or both partners being very young, or the couple not actually being a couple. They may be friends with benefits, or may just be starting out in their relationship. 3. It's not right to ask the young to take on the responsibility of carrying or caring for a child when they haven't even finished high school and are still children themselves. For those who do wish to receive an education, having a child only makes things more difficult, especially if they have to get a job to care for the baby. College is barely enough these days, let alone a high school diploma or less. Then there's the simple fact that most teens aren't emotionally mature enough to handle caring for a child. Is it fair to the baby to be brought up by such irresponsible people? Even if they were among those few who are responsible, they might ultimately hate their own children for taking their youth away. And who wants that? This is why it's so important to provide anatomy and safe sex education in schools for boys and girls alike. Each should learn the same things as well, so that they have they understand the biology of the opposite sex. It's also important to talk with them at home, so that they know the facts and aren't afraid to talk with their parents should something happen. No one ever wants to hear the news that his or her underage child had sex. But if they are going to do it, they might as well be safe and avoid pregnancy. Using condoms is also recommended for anyone who either has multiple partners, who thinks or knows his partner does, or who is unsure about the disease status of himself or his partner. I'm using him, but this is important for women as well, since there are both male and female condoms, and both protect against disease. Condoms are actually the only form of contraception that do protect against disease. So if you are unsure, even if you're on the pill, it doesn't matter. It's best to use them. 4. Even if one claims that those who had sex should take responsibility for their actions, there are times, such as rape, when doing so would be traumatizing and unfair. Is it right to ask a woman, particularly if she was young, to continue a pregnancy if it was the result of a rape? What if the male was her father or another family member? The child would forever be a reminder of that horrible day. While there are women who say that they love their children no matter what and consider them blessings, the point is that they made the decision to continue the pregnancies and weren't forced into them. There's a huge, huge difference there between I chose to keep my child because I love him, and I was forced to keep my child because my family, the law, etc., said that I had to. That's not right, and it's also not fair for the child to have to hear that. Well, I kept you because I had to. I didn't have a choice. 5. I understand that some men truly wish to be fathers, but ultimately it's the women who carry the children. If men could do so, I'd say go for it. There's also a difference between wishing to be a father and agreeing with your partner that you will care for the child once born versus forcing her by law or threats to carry the child. On the same token, I believe that if either the man or the woman decides to have nothing to do with the child, he or she shouldn't have to pay child support. But in such cases, all visitation rights, etc., should be stripped. It's really unfair in this case to the men. Many times the women force the men to pay child support, and then the men can't see the children, or they don't want to see the children, or they literally cannot afford to pay child support. And some women understand, and others are just really cruel about it, and that's not fair. There's a difference between being a deadbeat dad and honestly barely being able to keep a roof over your head. And so I think that the laws should be made equal for both sexes, or genders, if you will. 6. Contrary to what some may believe, most women do not use abortion as birth control. That would be like saying that everyone who owns a kitchen knife is a mass murderer. Some do, and I think that those women should be sterilized. 7. I do not consider a fetus to be a person unless it could survive outside the womb. This is especially true when it's a ball of cells and when a pregnancy test can first be used. But I do not like partial birth abortions. By that time, unless you have a health risk, there was a serious tragedy in the family, like death of a partner or a child or parent, or it was a surprise pregnancy. Those actually do happen. You should know whether or not you want the child, or should have decided on a course of action long before this. If worst comes to worst, have the baby put up for adoption. Now, I mentioned being born and being able to survive outside the womb. I know someone is going to say, but babies still need to be cared for. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about literally that you don't need to be on all these tubes and wires and everything else. I myself was born premature. I was 2 months premature. I was 1 pound 11 ounces, which for those of you who don't know the imperial system is very, very light, very small. I could fit in your hand. That's what I mean by not being able to survive outside the womb. So technically I was still a fetus when I was born. However, because of the closeness to my proper time of birth, I still would not have supported abortion in my case. And it's not just because it's me, it's because by that time, well, actually I was born addicted to heroin and all that, so that was a bit of a different story. I might support abortion in that case. But for a regular pregnancy, no. 8. I think that there are certain circumstances when the child will be born with such a debilitating disease that it would either cause him unreasonable amounts of pain without hope for a cure, or pain management, or would be so devastating to the brain that he would never be able to understand basic concepts and therefore would never be able to care for himself when older, that the fetus or child, if born, should be euthanized. I also believe that certain types of adults, such as the severely mentally retarded, those with disabilities which are sure to be passed on to their children, or diseases for that matter, or the criminally and insane, and those with a history of abuse and or use of drugs or alcohol with no desire to stop the above should be sterilized or euthanized depending on circumstances. But neither this nor abortions should ever be done on the basis of age, sex or gender, race, religion, sexual orientation, etc. If you'd like to debate either euthanasia or sterilization, I have both of those essays here on YouTube. 9. I think it should be illegal for people to protest in front of abortion clinics. These poor women have enough to deal with. No one throws a party when she's getting an abortion. And hearing hate-filled speeches and having people try to condemn you to hell certainly doesn't help matters, and neither does proselytizing. Like, you should believe in Jesus and turn away from the darkness and all that kind of stuff. That's not right, and it's fine to do in other circumstances if you must do it, but don't do it when this woman has enough to deal with and is dealing with a traumatizing and horrible situation. Even if you're really pro-choice, no one goes, whoop-de-doo, I'm going to have an abortion. You know, it's something that is a serious decision, and by the time you're at the clinic, you've made it, and you should be respected for it. 10. I have no issues with those who, regardless of circumstances, believe that a pregnancy was sent from God, the gods, etc. It's when people start forcing their beliefs that I have a serious problem. An exception would be under temporary military rule, but even then, I would hope that at least non-hormonal contraception and the ability to get an abortion outside of the country would be permitted. And of course, once the republic or democracy was restored, all the regular freedoms should also be restored with it. That concludes my summary. If I missed anything, or if you'd like to comment on any points, feel free to do so. Just keep it civil. Thank you.